let's talk about the death of Carl Bridgewater.
Yes?
Where were you when you first heard the news that Carl Bridgewater had been murdered?
At home. No, sorry. I was at work the next day.
How did you react?
Bloody hell, you know.
When you were first interviewed
Yes?
by the police, here was this shocking murder of a paperboy. You knew the farm.
Yes?
You knew the family, the
Yes.
Bridgewaters, but you didn't really offer very much to the police in that first interview.
I knew them. They weren't personal friends. I know you. You're not personal friend. So if you got stabbed tomorrow in Boston, I haven't got much to offer. I knew you, yes.
There's a witness who says that he saw a Vauxhall Viva,
Right.
which you had at the time.
Right.
And the person driving the Vauxhall Viva
Yeah.
was wearing a uniform with 2 pips on it.
Thank you for saying that. If you ever went down to Yew Tree Farm, down the lane, and saw a Vauxhall Viva turning left, you'd see the back of a Vauxhall Viva turning left. You'd see nothing else whatsoever. You've just mentioned a car that could have been mine. It wasn't.
Because of the sighting of a uniformed man in a blue Vauxhall, the police decided to question Bert again, this time at Corbett Hospital where he worked. They were particularly interested in his alibi, which his secretary, Barbara, provided. I can confirm that Mr. Hubert Spencer was at Corbett Hospital all afternoon. What Bert did not tell police was that Barbara and he were close friends and neighbours.
Someone said he didn't tell the police that Barbara Rybold lived 10 doors up the same road.
She was the secretary you
She was
worked
the
with in
secretary at the hospital. They didn't ask. You know, I could have said, I've got green socks on tonight. I've just had a poo in the toilet. They didn't ask. And I appreciated what they were there for. They were asking questions. And I answered the questions. I answered every question.
You continue to campaign against people thinking that you had anything to do with that crime.
I've stopped that now. Listen, I'm on camera. I don't give a shit. Think what you will.
Well, I think I was, you know, in shock for quite a while. I just wouldn't believe them that it had, I just thought they was making it up, that I just couldn't believe that it had happened.
In the weeks following the murder of newspaper boy Carl Bridgewater, a local ambulance man, Bert Spencer, was the police's prime suspect.
Things were going and dropping into place, which I'd say not as an ordinary, as a policeman or a detective, but I would have said, blue car, Bert's got a blue car. Person in uniform, Bert wears the uniform. Knows the family, Bert knows the family. He knew where they lived. Well, 3 out of 3 makes a story.
Despite the growing body of circumstantial evidence pointing to Bert, just 10 weeks after Carl's murder, the police suddenly had a new lead and a new set of suspects. A professional gang had used a shotgun in another farmhouse raid, just 10 miles from Yew Tree Farm.
The police picked up 4 men, all known to them as armed robbers. Michael Hickey, Vincent, his cousin, James Robinson. A 4th, Pat Malloy.
After several days of interrogation, one of the men, Patrick Malloy, admitted to being at Yew Tree Farm. He said he was upstairs when he heard a gunshot and that his accomplice, 16-year-old Michael Hickey, had accidentally killed Carl with a shotgun. Malloy's confession led the rest of the gang to turn on one another. Despite the absence of any physical evidence against them, these confessions led to their successful prosecution, and the so-called Bridgewater Four were jailed for between 12 and 25 years. But there was one person who was convinced that the Bridgewater Four were innocent, and they'd been set up by the police.
Then, as the teenager Michael Hickey was led away, his mother, Anne, rushed to the front of the gallery and cried down to him tearfully, "I'll fight, Michael, I'll fight."
At the time, no one paid much attention to Anne Whelan's campaign. As far as the public was concerned, Carl's killers were safely behind bars.